I have a video on Derek Parfit's response to the question of why anything exists at all and why this kind of universe exists. And Richard Swinburne has a response to Parfit's view about that issue. And so this short video is on that topic. Now, Swinburne agrees with Parfit on one or two things. So, for example, Swinburne agrees that there cannot be a causal explanation of the universe. There can't be a natural law that explains why there are natural laws, right? So there can't be a causal explanation there. Causal explanations have to stop somewhere. So there is a point of agreement. Now, Swinburne, though, does not agree with Parfit's main thesis, and he uses Bayesian rationale that involves probability reasoning in order to make his argument. Now, Bayesian rationale is the same kind of rationale that's used in the natural sciences, social sciences, even detective work. And in fact, to a certain degree, in everyday reasoning, it is an intuitive kind of reasoning. Now, we're not going to go into great detail about Bayesian reasoning. I have another video, and I'll put the link up here in a moment, about that. But very broadly, Swinburne describes Bayesian reasoning. So consider some evidence, some event that occurs, some effect that you're noticing. So in science, moss growing on the north side of trees or something, if just in everyday life, your furniture is moved when you get home. Then you consider a potential cause of that effect, that evidence that you have, and the cause would just call it C. And in the case of moss growing on the north side of trees, you realize that the sun shines around on the tree everywhere, but on the north side. So that's significant to what you're going to identify as the cause. And for the everyday occurrence of, say, your furniture is moved, the suggested C might be your roommate has rearranged. And if the existence of C makes it more probable that E exists, so if the fact that your roommate decided to rearrange makes it more likely that the furniture has moved, and if that C, that cause did not exist, then it's more probable that E would not exist. So if your roommate had not decided to rearrange, then it's more probable that the furniture would not have moved. To put this in the moss on the north side of trees example, if the sun had shone on the north side of the tree, then we would think there would not be moss growing. We see moss's sensitivity to light, something like that. And then we have C as a simple entity or a law or a simple explanation, like your roommate rearranged. Well, then the existence of E makes it probable that C exists. So the fact that your furniture is moved makes it probable that your roommate rearranged, and that included rearranging the furniture. Now, Bayesian theory is much more detailed. Here's a link to my video that goes through a much more detailed explanation of Bayesian theory. So you can see that if you want to, but you don't need to understand what Swinburne is doing. Okay, so Swinburne's conclusion is, well, where E is the world or the universe as we know it, that includes life, and C is the existence of God, E makes the existence of C probable. So having a universe like ours that is otherwise extremely improbable when you consider the possibility of God creating a universe like ours, well, then the fact that we have a universe like ours makes the existence of God probable. Now, of course, Swinburne has much more to say about that, but just in responding to Parfit here, this is his overall approach. So postulating one God is simpler than many. So unlike Hume, Swinburne says all you need is one God. And then he criticizes the axiarchical view of Parfit, saying that it is actually implausible because we don't know of any actual cases where anything like the principle that Parfit suggests actually works. It's not the kind of thing that is causally effective, right? To continue this idea and Swinburne's claim of advantage of his own view, we, in fact, do know of creative minds bringing something into existence that is like humans, but not of some principle of good or value that is creatively effective, like the principle that Parfit suggests. Now, Parfit is concerned about simplicity, and Swinburne responds to that by saying, well, as for simplicity, God is not totally different from humans. In other words, we are aware of the kind of beings that create and have intentionality, and God is like that. So we too have these rational and creative capacities. Now, obviously, Swinburne is not going to go too far in that comparison. And one other thing to note here about Swinburne's response, an unstated assumption of his is that there's not going to be any other cause that is as plausible or even more plausible than than God bringing this about. So he's assuming that. Now, elsewhere, he goes into details in explaining and arguing why he thinks that is true. So that, in brief, is Swinburne's response to Parfit on existence.